Hey guys, Chief Fruity here, and this is the BTS of the EDM song Waves. So this song was appreciated a lot, and it was featured in Amazing Animal Adventures 100 subscriber special. So that was pretty cool, and really excited to show you what I've done with this track. So yeah, keep all that in mind. And by the way, if you have not if you have not heard the original song, because this is BTS, so if you've not heard the song, there's a link for that in the description below. And I'm gonna roll the intro, then I'll get right into it. That was the intro, and now to get into the song. So this is the project right here, and this was the EDM song, so there's not as much automation as my normal dubstep, but yeah, there's still a lot of cool stuff in here I'm going to show you. So I'll start off with the drum beat here, which is the main kind of thing you first hear. So this is kind of a long drum beat. It's not in these four little, this whole measure. It goes 2 measures, and then here's the second bit right here. So it's double as long. So I'll turn down the BPM really low, a little bit, for the beginning, so I can really show you. So it started at 133 BPM, and I'm bringing it down to 60, and here we go. So you can tell, you can kind of look by seeing it, because since it was slower BPM, it was easier for me to track it, so you can see it better. So now I'll turn it back up to the normal, which is 133, and then you'll be able to hear it like normal. So these are actually the default drums for FL Studio, which you may have noticed, and you might be thinking, like, why'd you use the default drums? Well, that's because in all the samples here, the packs, and then the drums, kicks, I couldn't find a kick that was good enough for an EDM bass. Now for this one, I use this as kind of a template, and the normal kick, and then I turned up the pitch a lot to get it EDM ease. That's why I turned up the pitch a lot. So you gotta, when you're making EDM, make sure you actually put your drums at a slight pitch. They gotta be a little bit higher pitch. So that's what this kick did. That's what I did to this kick, and it is on track 1, and I don't have any effects on it, but I turned up the volume all the way since I pitched a little bit. It was losing a little bit of volume, as well as I didn't turn up the volume here, but I turned up that pitch. That was the other thing I was showing. I did this pitch there and that one. So that is it for the kick, and I also have a second kick. Now that sounds really weird. Now why I did this is because I was experimenting with having a distorted kick in the drop, but I didn't end up using that, so I didn't use this. And how I got it to sound like this, if you're interested, I just put some pretty fast distortion on it, and it's mix and poster all the way down on the exact same kick sample, and it's turned down a little bit for compression reasons. And then I got the snare here. This was the default snare as well, so like, I'm using all the default stuff here except for the hi-hat. I got my own hi-hat, and exact same thing as the kick. I put up the pitch all the way there, and then a little bit on this pitch knob. I also, with the snare at least, I messed with this envelope here a little bit on volume to get it to, so it's a little bit different. So I just changed a little bit of these a little bit. So, if you're wanting to recreate the snare, you gotta make it look like this by twisting all these knobs. So basically, this is the wave it's going through. And that is the snare, except for the mixer track, which is reverb. So you can tell it's about above average. It's above average reverb at about 60%. So I put it a little bit higher since the snare was really pitched. Like, without this reverb, it sounds like this. No, like this. that's really bad. So I put a lot of reverb to make it really sound pretty professional. Since it was, the default snare, I really had to do a lot to make it sound pretty good. So like I said, I just use these default drums as templates, really. And then I have two hats, a closed hat, which is this one. And again, I pitched it the same way that I did before and boosted the volume a little bit there. And an open hat. The open hat is not pitched, it's just the closed hat that's pitched. And the open hat is on track 5, and it just has lower volume since it's a longer lasting sound. I lowered it so it kind of fades out in the mix a little bit better. Now I could have just done like a side chain, but I thought it would just be easier to lower the volume, so yeah, I did that. So that is it for these drums. So I'll play the loop here. And then the fourth one of every loop, it does something different. So I'll play the fourth one right now. And then for this loop here on these drums, it does this. So there's just a couple extra hats in there to get it more interesting. And then the fourth one, it is like this. This has those extra kicks towards the end to get it into the next pair of drums, which is these drums number 15. So I'll play these for you. I'll play these for you now. So the only difference between that one is, again, there's more hi-hats added. Now, I kept adding those hi-hats because the drums are basically the main lead here, other than these chords. I'll get into those chords in a little bit, and then now for the final drum pattern, which has those extra kicks with the hats. So that is that drum loop, and then in the beginning, it starts off with this crash. I'll show you the crash. This is that same broken crash I always use. I've showed you before. Only difference is I put up the pitch all the way here to get it to fit with the rest of the drums and that EDM feel, and then I turn the volume down a little bit because it got pretty loud. So yeah, now to get into this noise right here. So in for this noise here, I'll play the noise right here, right now. I'll just stop there because it just slowly fades out and it gets kind of boring. So this is it with a crash. So I didn't have a separate kick because the drums here started with a kick. Normally, whenever you play crash, you should play a kick along with it. It gives the crash more bass and a much better feel. So this is it with the drum. So there's that. So this noise, I'll go into how I made the noise. I made this one in 3XOSC. And I just put all the operators to noise. This is the noise wave, which is basically, if it showed the actual image of it, it would basically just look like a bunch of little triangles. And it used to look like that in FL Studio 11, but they changed it to this little cube here. So in the beginning that made it a little bit confusing, so I was looking for the noise wave, but then I figured out that it was this. So yeah, pretty simple. You just write from the default 3XOSC, you just change it to these three, and that's all you have to do, the noise. And then you turn down the volume a little bit since it's pretty filling. And then for the cutoff, I just used this cutoff right here, this filter. I automated that right here, and that's what got it to go to fade down. And then now I'll get into the chords here, which are playing right from the beginning, just they're at a very low filter right here, so you can't really tell that they're there. So this is the sound with the full filter. So you can tell it's basically just a full synth. So this is it in this little harmonic shower here, our harmonic viewer. So I'll close this and then show you the rest of the plugin. So it has 5 voices of unison. Now normally, you know, I do 9, but 9 got it a little too crazy, and without any, it was sounding really bad. So I went about right way through the middle, halfway through the middle, and that was at 5. And I made it sound pretty decent like that for a chord. And then with a harmonizer, I turned up the amount about 30% and the width about 60% to get to some harmonies, but not too much. And I turned down the stir a little bit. Normally it's like that, I think. Oh, normally it's none. So then I put up to 25%. So all of these changed, all the harmonizers. And then I put down the pitch a little bit, because when it was at standard pitch up here, that was way too high. I could have just gone an octave lower, like that. But going like this, got about halfway through the octave, but since the song was in C, I had to play it in C. I didn't want to play it down here, so I put the pitch down. So yeah, what else? This was a really simple sound. Then I did a cutoff for this filter. Now on the mixer, this is on track 15, all I did was add this reverb. You can tell the wetness is right there, about 40%, 50, you know, something like that. And then down here, I turned the volume down since it got pretty loud playing the chord. So since it was getting pretty loud because of this reverb, dry was up kind of a lot. So I turned it down to make up for that. And then this is the chords playing with a filter. So those are the chords, and I'll show you these in the piano roll so you can see the notes here. The filter's down. So one thing you might see right away is they're off time. Now, normally you would not want to do that, but in this case it worked out pretty well. So yeah, it's really just how it works. Now, since this song was in, oh wait, no, yeah, it wasn't E. Never mind. Let me get up to E here. E's here. So since I was playing these in a pattern, originally they were all in time, like all these were all scrunched together, and then there was more chords to fill up this whole space here. But then it didn't sound very well. And then if you have every audio track perfectly on time, you know, they won't like fit together at all. So you have to have some audio tracks off time to contrast the time that is on, if that makes sense. So with the other audio tracks, I'll show you later, like they all fit together really well, and I'll show you that at the end. So that is why these are kind of off time like this, playing E chords to D chords to a C chord. So it's 2 E's, 3 D's, and then a C in this pattern. And even though it's off time, it still sounds like it's in time, you know? So that's pretty cool there. And then I got noise fading in, just like the same noise here, but it's fading in now for this rise here before the drop. And then I have a sub bass fading in. So if you didn't hear that, that's because your speakers aren't good enough, so you should buy some new ones or plug them in. So for this is the same style I always use. It's pitch all the way down, and then the point, and then the 1 for the frequency. I keep saying 0.1 because I see that little dot there, and I just assume like 0.1, but it's 1. So that's the sub. And on track 12, it just has some EQ. Now that looks kind of weird because it's draining out all the lows. Well, I did that because I was fading the sub in. So I'll play this little loop here, and I'll grab the EQ and watch the sub fade in. So you can tell that it's rising up with this. So it goes like this. And it's fading up. So if I go down up here a little bit, then it brings it up. So the reason I did that is so it doesn't slam you with bass really fast, because then the song would be all off balance and it would end up being really bad. So that's why I had it fade up. And then this second sound, this is the drop pattern, starts playing. So that is the drop pattern, and this sound was made directly off the chords. I just copied the chord patch and made it off of this. So you can tell the unison's 5 voices just like the chords, and then the amount, the width, and the stir are the exact same values. The only difference here is I put the pitch up and then I put some vibrato, which if you don't know what that does, it makes the pitch a wobble. So you can watch it in here. You can tell that the pitch is wobbling like that, and that is what this vibrato does. So that's all I did for this second sound, is I just used the same patch and I put on some effects. I'll show you what these effects are. So the reverb, the same as the other one, so I just really copied everything. And then I have an effector with more reverb, and then I have an EQ boosting the lows and the highs. The reason I did that is because when all the treble was all the way down, it sounded too much like the chord, so I wanted to stick it out by adding in that treble. And then I have some chorus, and this is really what gives it that kind of shakiness, that distant feeling that makes it sound pretty like it does and unique, and make it stick out from the rest of the drop. And I have another EQ to kind of boost some mid/lows. This EQ didn't do very much. Like it could do without this EQ, but this one, it makes it sound a little bit more unique. So that's the sound. It's fading in with the filters. I'll play this. So that is the saw that's fading in, and then I got these kicks going along with the drums. So you wouldn't notice these kicks till about the first measure before the drop, because they're lining in sync exactly with the beat until right here. And then you can start to hear them. And I got this little snare fill here playing 16th. So, I did that to kind of give it a little effect before the drop, to kind of like bring it, rise it, spike it, drop it. As well as right before the drop, I have this little sound playing in with that snare. It goes like this. I'm just pressing all the wrong stuff today. Yeah, here it is. So I'll have to shrink this down so you can see both notes, because it's sliding 2 octaves down. So that is a saw wave, and as you can tell, the pitch is very high, as you can see right here. 2 voices in unison, and then the frequency is about like 80%. And why I did that is because it is silencing these top harmonics a little bit. Because when the filter was full, these harmonics were sticking out way too much, and it made the sound really bad, like this. That just sounds really bad, so I did this. Soften those top harmonics, but the rest are still staying there. And then it doesn't have any harmonizers. Now, this, you might be like, well, there's harmonizers turned up there. Well, yes, there is, but this amount regulates the volume of these. So basically, if this is all the way down, it turns the whole thing off. It's basically activated and then not activated, so these wouldn't be doing anything. And then the pitch is up. I already told you 2 voices in unison. That's on track 13, and I got reverb. This is the same reverb as all the other ones. Use the same one every time. And then EQ, some lows, and some tremble, again to make it a little more unique. And then more reverb through effector. So that was just this little drop sound. and then I showed you this little snare. I'll show you the snare fill with the drop. So it goes like, yeah, like this, and it starts the drop. So now it's time to go into the drop. So now it's time for the drop. So the drop drum beat stays the exact same. So I kept the same beat going because since it's an EDM song, normally you keep the same beat. And this isn't really a trancey or trance or house. That's what I was saying of house, because like it is a 4-on-4 beat, but it's not just slamming a kick. It has kind of snare and hat action. And you know, normally with a drop for these, it would just be like kicks and snares up to here, and then on the second part of the drop there'd be the hi-hat. But I had it that way the whole way through because you know, I actually don't really like it that much when it's just the kick. I think there can be cooler stuff done than that. That's just my opinion. If you disagree with that, then you can make your songs however you want. So then the sub bass is activated up here. Now, so this is activated 100%, even though it's not all the way up. Because if this was activated all the way up, that would be bringing the EQ of the sub up like that. So this is normal, and then it was like this, so it's being brought to right there with this envelope. And then you can see it's fading out because I don't want it to have to fade out really fast after the drop. I want it to gain momentum here and then slowly kind of lose it. And you don't really notice that because this sound is progressing into it. So I'll show you what this sound is right now. This was that same exact drop I showed you. The only difference is it's on the same mix track. So this is the same sound as this drop right here. It's just playing a different pattern. So I'll show you what this pattern is. And it's playing in E because the song's in E. So that is fading into the drop, as well as the bass, which is this pluck bass, first shows up in the drop. So that's just some simple pluck bass. And this one was made in Harmor again, so I turned the pitch down all the way. So the reason I turned down the pitch here was, you know, it's a bass, so you gotta turn the pitch. And I did the frequency halfway, or the filter, because when it was full, it has that weird little start. Like, it just sounds really weird, so I turned it down halfway to 50%. So it sounds like a pluck bass should. And then the pluck is, because you know when the pluck's all the way, it will just continue like that. So I turned down the pluck to give it a pluck. And then that's really all I did here. Pluck basses are really simple. You can make them really fast. And I just did some EQ to boost some lows, and I lowered the overall spectrum to, you know, kind of give it a little bit less volume, really. As well as I lowered the volume here on the mixer a little bit. That's default, and it's down there a little bit. So that was this pluck bass, and then the saw, and I showed you the drop. The drum beat stays the same. In this saw, in the drop, it doubles up like this, playing itself on 2 different octaves at the same time. And I did this to fill it up so the drop kind of feels more like a drop rather than just like a verse or something. So that is really all there is to the drop. Then it just repeats the same thing the second time, but this saw is fading in at the second time. So that saw wave is slowly fading in, and then it goes into the verse. So with this verse, there's a different pluck bass pattern going here. So this is that pattern. And it just keeps repeating them over and over. The chords come back in. Oh yeah, the filter's down, but the chords come back in. So, you know, just like this. So how I got that effect there was with both these sounds is I took their filter starting from 0 up to 100% really fast at the very beginning. And I did that to it gives it a cool effect. A lot of EDM songs do that. So I did that because, it's pretty cool to go in like that, as the noise is fading in and the sub bass is fading out, and then the drums reset, so it goes to the first beat, and then there's a crash. And then it just repeats that. The saw wave is slowly gaining, so I'll play this for you from here. It's slowly, the filter is slowly building up for the second drop. And then the chords are staying at the full volume the whole time. So this verse is really just the same as the beginning. Just the saw waves playing in a bit, and there's a sub, and the chords are louder the whole time. And I got this saw wave again, just like the first rise, rising into it. Kicks are the same, the hats are the same. The snares has the same little drop thing. Just in the very beginning of this drop, when it does this and stops, how I did that is I rose everything to full. I did this little beat down section, and when it dropped, I did a crash, and I put a kick down at the same time with the crash. So that was just the drums here, which is that kick and the crash. You could definitely hear that kick, because without the kick, it would sound like this. I'll play the whole thing. Just without the kick, it would sound like this. And then, then the drums will come in. So it'll be like this, And it just sounds kind of empty when you do that without that kick, the crash. It just doesn't seem as hard. And then I put the filters of everything starting from 0 and going to full in this short little time span. So that is what made it slam, and then it kind of it reset this little beatdown section, and then it dropped on this second little bar here. And then from this second bar, the only difference between this second drop and the first drop is the chords are in it. And this little saw wave is full volume the whole time, so all the audio tracks are playing. Now this is where I was talking about where the off time meets in with the on time. So I'll play you chords with the saw, with this other saw. So when they all fit together, it's like this. So that is really what makes or breaks EDM, is you really have to get all your audio tracks fitting together really well. So the way I did that I think is the best, is you start off with your main lead. So that I actually made these chords first, and then once you make your chords, find a pattern that fits on top of the chords that complements it, like this saw right here. And then once you have those two, make a lead that fits with both of those. Now making the leads the hardest, because you have to make it fit 2 instead of 1. So it just takes some time to get all 3 of the tracks to fit together, and then you'll have a pretty awesome song like this one. And then right after the drop, it fades out. Back the audio tracks is basically just reversed as it was in the beginning. So that is the BTS for Waves, and I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel, if you haven't already. I post weekly dubstep drops. I have singles coming out as well as the album coming out soon. So the album's called Wreckage. I'll be putting a sneak peek to that pretty soon. And also, I will be starting an EDM tutorial course called EDM 101. And what I'll be doing in that course is I'll basically show you how to make an EDM song from ground zero to EDM song like this. Because with this was just a BTS, it wasn't really a tutorial. So I'm making a project for that, and my plan is it'll be 5 parts, so 5 different videos, and in those videos there will be a week where Monday through Friday I'll upload 1 of those each day for a week. So I don't know when that week will be, so there will be more info on that in my Twitter, which is in the description below, as well as a link to the original song of Waves in the description below. So you can go to all those, and yeah, thank you for watching, and be sure to like, rate, and subscribe.